Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to this webinar. My name is Byron and I'll be your organizer for the session. And with me today is Gerhard. I have a short video I'd like to play before handing over to our presenter.
Do you work for yourself or run your own company? A lack of knowledge about finances and financial management can limit your growth. The Tools function on App Plumber offers you assistance in calculating your call-out fees and service rates so that your business not merely survives but also makes a profit. Install App Plumber today and use the tool functions to make sure you charge your worth.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That's it from my side, and I'd like to hand over to our presenter.
Good morning, Byron. I just want to check that you can hear me.
Yep, I can hear you.
Perfect. I'm going to share the screen now. Remember, I cannot see any participants. Are we waiting to the end, Byron, for a Q&A, or do we take questions during the presentation?
We'll take questions at the end of the presentation.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, cool. I can see your screen.
Right. I might check with you from time to time just to see that the slides advance. I do have a bit of a slow internet connection here.
No stress. Cool.
The talk for today is Greywater Systems. And Greywater Systems is one of those things that many plumbers try to avoid because of the issues that is associated with that. Today, I would like to share with you my journey with Greywater Systems and the solution at the end, whereby you can offer that with confidence to your customers. Byron, after the previous talk, I might just want to mention to everybody who's online, a few people had the idea that they must line up customers and then refer them to Maskam Water. That is not the case. We are an equipment supplier. We will assist you with the design and the quote, but the customer remains yours. In other words, the plumber will quote the customer, they will purchase equipment from Maskam Water and then do the installation and the maintenance thereafter. So the customer remains with the plumber. The customer, we never deal with the customer directly. What is Greywater? Greywater is your used water from your bath, shower, washing machine. We so often get this confused. Toilet water is black water. So for that, we use the Clarus Fusion, not a Greywater system. And kitchen wastewater is also regarded as black water because of the amount of fat and food residue in the water. We do have instances where kitchen water go to the Greywater system, but then it is up to the user to ensure that oils and fats don't go down the drain. You don't have a lot of food, raw food going down the drain. So that is something that then need to be managed on site very, very carefully. Now, why use Greywater? Greywater is a very cheap form of alternative water. So by using Greywater, you will reduce your potable water demand. If we think, for instance, what happened in Gauteng recently with the water restrictions, but not only restrictions, where areas were without water for some time. The Greywater system can breach a day or two without water, at least for toilet flushing and other non-potable use. It is not drinkable, and I would not recommend putting it back into the showers. But for like toilet flushing, at least you can have sanitation at home. You don't have to buy water from Pick n Pay for that. Then, if we reduce our consumption in the buildings, and that is now commercial and domestic, if we reduce our consumption by reusing Greywater, or same with reusing black water on site, then it gives the municipal system chance to recharge. So that means that we can reduce or even avoid cuts from the municipal supply if we use this as an option to reduce our intake of water from the municipality. If you look at the situation in the Eastern Cape, where Nelson Mandela's base dams are still critically low, by reusing water on site, again, we reduce the intake of fresh water from the municipality, and it will give the system a chance to recharge. So a typical use for Greywater would be garden irrigation, toilet flushing, cleaning of hard surfaces, and any other use you may have on site where there's no direct human contact. For toilet flushing, obviously, you will need a dual pipe system. So your toilets need to be on a separate supply to the rest of the house. I'm not going into detail about the safeties and backflow preventers and stuff. We've covered that in a previous session. Garden irrigation, untreated grey water is always or mostly a problem. You want to send the rest of the people in the house away when you start the irrigation system, but there is a solution for that, and we're getting to that just now. It is possible to treat grey water to drinking water standards, but that comes at a price. So the low-hanging fruit would be to use your grey water for non-potable purposes and still use your municipal water for potable purposes. The use of untreated grey water is problematic, and when we talk grey water, most people think of untreated grey water. You cannot store it because there's a real bad odor if you store it for 2 or 3 days and you then want to use it. It blocks up irrigation systems. It's really seen as dirty water. It's something that people steer away from. And the flip side is that treated grey water will not have any bad odors. It can be stored for excessive periods of time. I'm talking months at a time. And it can be used for an array of more non-potable uses. It will not clog up your irrigation system. It will not clog up your toilet. And other uses that you have for that, it is quite easy to use once it is treated. Now, very important, when looking at the cost and the payback period for a grey water system, if you use grey water, you obviously save on your water bill. But many municipalities charge sewage as a percentage of your water purchases. I know Johannesburg, for instance, does it, Cape Town does it. So your saving is not only on purchasing water, your saving is also on the sewage charge, because you buy less water from council, you also pay less for your sewage charge. So there's a double saving there that we need to keep into account when we do the payback cost calculation. Grey water may contain harmful bacteria. Not that it will, but if you use it, for instance, for floor washing, I would recommend disinfecting it using either UV or chlorine. However, with chlorine, one needs to be aware that there may be byproducts that's formed. So UV is a safer option because you don't have the byproducts that forms with it. For normal irrigation purposes, normally disinfection is not needed. But if it is used in-house, for instance, toilet flushing, I would definitely recommend adding a bit of chlorine, not only to keep it stale in the toilet system, but also if you have kids around that might put their hands into the toilet, one want to be sure that it is safe. But that is something that can be added at any point. So one can decide to not disinfect and add it, or you can decide to disinfect and remove it if not needed. That's an add-on to the system. Then just a bit of history where we come from, because there's so many, I almost want to say fly-by-nights, everybody become reuse experts the minute that there's no water, and the other half become oral experts. So we built our first grey water system back in 2003, and that was a typical anaerobic system where you couldn't store the water for long and it blocked the irrigation system. So we started improving on that, and we had continual R&D going for 12 years from there on. So the current domestic model was built in 2015 and installed in January of 2016 for the first time. So that system is running now for almost 7 years without a glitch. And this model sets a new standard in grey water treatment. Remember, the thing with grey water is it needs to be relatively cheap to treat it. Once you get to the cost of like RO, it becomes too expensive and it's not worth it. So I think we reached the sweet spot where your maintenance is low, your operating cost is low, but you get a very good usable water quality out on the other end. There are 3 types of grey waters that we built. The one is the domestic type, which is anything from 1,500 up to 7,000 liters per day. Now, if you say 1,500, the storage capacity is 1,500 liters. So if you have an irrigation system and you're not irrigating every day, but you have a normal household that discharge 400 or 500 liters a day to the Greywater system, you can go for 3 days and then do proper irrigation. If you don't have the storage capacity, then you need to irrigate every day or a couple of times per day, but you don't get proper saturation of the soil. So it is pointless because all you do is dust control and the water never reach the roots of the plants. So it is better to store the water for a number of days and then irrigate, and you get proper saturation. Remember, with this system, you can store it for a number of days and you will not have an odor problem. Then if you look at commercial, that we design on customer request and customer requirement. So we can use the domestic systems for commercial, we have done it, but there are commercial applications where we need a different approach, and we do that on a case-by-case basis. And the same then apply for industrial customers. The domestic system, that's just a brief overview of what it looks like. That's the subsurface model. We also do above ground if needed. But the subsurface comes as a pre-manufactured unit. And the installer will dig the hole, drop it in. You have an inlet pipe, a vent pipe, an overflow to the municipal sewer, an airline connection, and the suction pipe for the pump. So there are 5 connections to make, and the entire system is up and running. So first we have a baffle that separates the incoming water from the irrigation water. Then we have a lint filter that ensures the lint from your washing machine stays behind in this chamber, and overflow will run to the sewer. So any body lotions and body fat that may be in the water will flow to the top here, and with overflow to the municipal sewer system. Sand and grit will settle at the bottom. In a non-domestic setup, you have to pump that out after about 3 years. But if you want to play it safe, I would recommend once a year you just do a bit of dislodge for the customer, and that you can pump into the sewer system. Then there's an air grid for aeration. The air will take the ammonia from your handy Andy, for instance, and change that around to nitrates, which is good for the plants. Ammonia is not good for the plants, but nitrates is. We store the irrigation water in this chamber as well. And we have an option whereby rainwater can be added. And it is designed that once this chamber fills up, rainwater will overflow to the stormwater, and incoming grey water will overflow to the municipal sewer. So you will never have the issue of grey water ending up in the stormwater system, or you will never have the issue of stormwater ending up in the municipal sewer. And that is very, very, very important. The bylaws from many municipalities also prevent your grey water from going to the stormwater and prevent your rainwater from going to the sewer. You see, the problem with rainwater into the sewer system, it's often a quick link. But when it rains, we completely flood our municipal sewer systems and our municipal wastewater treatment plants. And then we create a pollution situation downstream from there. So it is never wise to connect a rainwater pipe to a sewer system. It may be a quick fix, but we're creating a lot of issues downstream. So this system can be connected to the automatic irrigation system. You see, your normal grey water systems that cannot store water, there's no point in connecting it to the automatic irrigation system, because the minute you start it up, there's not even enough water to get the pop-ups out of the ground. Here you can store the water, you can then irrigate properly from there. And this entire system runs itself. There's no human intervention needed whatsoever, except for the little bit of maintenance. And I'll show you that just now. That's a photo of the inside. We've changed the baffle a little bit since this photo was taken, but in principle it is still the same. You see the lint filter there. Other than cleaning the lint filter about once every 3 months in a domestic setup, there is no other maintenance required on this system, none ongoing maintenance required. So the lint filter, you will twist and pull up, you rinse it under a tap, and you put it back. To clean the lint filter takes about 1 minute, and it needs to be done once every 3 months. There you can see the Greywater system installed. So it is out of sight. And the level of the grass here is a little bit low. It can be even less visible than this case. And then on the left-hand side there you see the irrigation system, the pump and a filter that goes to the irrigation system. This filter, with the old system, this had a retrofit from the old system to the new one. On the old system, that filter had to be cleaned monthly. On the new system, I ran this to test it for 3 years before opening that filter for the first time. So that'll give you an indication of the quality that we're talking about, the quality of treatment that's happening inside the Greywater system. In this case, space was an issue to dig in a Greywater system. So we installed the filter in a small basin here. And then we had a lifting station, so it'll overflow from the one to the other. And from there, we pump it into above ground tanks. We aerate those tanks and we take the irrigation water from there. Your overflow will be from this one back into the sewer system. In this case, rainwater is on a separate system altogether, but that rainwater can also again be linked back into the Greywater system. And this one you can see, that's how it should look, the Greywater system, even under the trampoline. There we've got rainwater harvesting as well. And the Greywater system under the trampoline. Now, this is typically what you can do for your customers in water scarce areas. We harvest your rainwater and that'll go into the house. And you have your Greywater system that takes care of the garden. So you need very, very little water from the municipality. Optional to the Greywater system. This is not standard included in the price because not everybody wants it. But this panel has been designed that everything connects in here. So it's pre-built. You don't need an electrician to do the connection. You can do the connection yourself. Everything is pre-built and pre-labeled. Where your irrigation pump connect in here, your air pump for the aeration connects in here, the float switches connect in here. And if you run out of Greywater, the system will automatically switch over to municipal water. So for irrigation purposes, for instance, if the Greywater is not sufficient to cover the entire garden, you can use 100% of your Greywater and only top up the shortfall with municipal water. And the indicator lights on the panel will tell you whether you're using water from the tank or whether you're using water from the municipal line. This is a commercial setup where Greywater is used for toilet flushing. Their toilets are not connected to municipal supply at all, so the Greywater system take care of that 100%. And this is student accommodation where we take the hostels, the Greywater from the hostels, the black water continues onto the municipal sewer. We take the Greywater from the hostels, we treat it, and it goes back to toilet flushing and to irrigating the sports fields. You will also see that we run variable speed drives on the pumps, and the reason for the variable speed drives is to keep constant pressure. That is perfect for both Gibberit and Flushmasters, and also for the irrigation system. So if you're irrigating and somebody starts using toilets, the VSD will just speed up the pump and you will still have enough pressure in your irrigation system. But it also saves about 30% power. So the VSD is very important here from a power saving and constant pressure point of view. That's all from my side. I see even with interruption, we made it in the 25 minutes mark. So if for more information, you can contact Annalisa if you're up country. And for the guys down here in the wine country and the Eastern Cape, have a chat to Johan at our Cape Town office. And the telephone numbers and email addresses you will find there. Byron, thank you very much. Back to you.
Thank you very much. I see we got a question there in the last second. How much weight can go on top of the tanks is the question.
Okay, how much weight can go on top of the tanks? The tanks are made of plastic, so you can walk over it, but you cannot drive over it. If you want to drive over it, there are two ways to do that. The one is cast the weight-bearing slab over the plastic tank. The other one would be to construct a concrete tank, and we can build the Greywater system into the concrete tank. So there are ways to cater for that if it needs to be in a driveway. But the standard unit, you can walk over it, your kids can play over it, you can run your lawnmower over there, but not the car.
Thank you very much. I don't think we have any other questions. We shall end off the session. Thank you very much, and have a blessed week, everyone.
Thank you.